Mystery Babylon Exposed.
Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. Today we are going to explore the tetragrammaton. Did you know that it's not God's name? God doesn't have a secret cipher code for a name. Did you know it was originally only 3 letters, not 4?
Earliest mention of Yahweh found in archaeological dump. An ancient tablet discovered near the Palestinian city of Nablus may contain the earliest known mention of God's name in Proto-alphabetic Hebrew. Scott Stripling, director of the Archaeological Studies Institute at the Bible Seminary in Katy, Texas, announced the discovery.
So this is called a curse tablet because the person that made the tablet was inscribing God's alleged name in order to curse someone.
The artifact, less than 1 inch in length and width and known as a curse tablet, also recalls the account of Joshua building an altar nearby, which Israeli archaeologist Adam Zertel excavated in the 1980s. The curse tablet was discovered near Mount Ebal, also called the Mount of the Curse in the books of Deuteronomy and Joshua.
The tetragrammaton contains 4 Hebrew letters, YHWH. Originally, it had only 3 letters, but they added a repeated letter to signify the supposed dual nature of God, which they referred to as darkness and light, female and male. Therefore, another H was added. The Kabbalah makes the lofty claim that God created the Hebrew alphabet before the creation of the world. Charles Ponce says the following.
From simple letters 3 were chosen and sealed so that they may be formed into a magnificent name, YHWH. With this name was the universe sealed in 6 directions.
For the sake of accuracy, let's see what the Kabbalah actually says. This is Sefer Yetzirah, chapter 1, verse 11 and 12. He selected 3 letters from the simple ones and sealed them as forming his great name, YHWH. And he sealed the universe in 6 directions. He looked above and sealed the height with YHWH. He looked below and sealed the deep with YHWH. He looked forward and sealed the east with HIV. He looked backward and sealed the west with VHI. He looked to the right and sealed the south with VIH. He looked to the left and sealed the north with HVI. So the same folks that you're trusting to give you a supposed 4-letter name of God are telling you his name was originally 3 letters. Now, should you really trust them that God's name is the 4-letter name that you've come to accept? Think about it. Revolving around these 4 letters is kind of a letter idolatry. The Kabbalists teach that these letters were involved in the creation of the world and that they have magical properties. The Kabbalah says in the Book of Concealed Mysteries, chapter 5, verse 43, "And the tetragrammaton alone shall be exalted in that day." The letters, when stacked vertically, they say, takes the form of a man, and they call him Adam Kadmon. The first letter is Yod, the germ, the life, the flame, the cause, the one, and the most fundamental of the Jewish phallic emblems. The Yod represents God's creative part, otherwise known as God's penis. And this is the reason for all these phallic symbols that you see in Freemasonry, because Freemasonry is based on the teachings of the Kabbalah. If you don't believe me, listen to this Jewish woman tell you herself. This is a very perverted view of God.
What is the Kabbalah? You've heard that the Kabbalah means the receiving, which is true. That's what it means, but that's a euphemism. What the Kabbalah actually is God and his wife, Israel, having sex. That's what the Kabbalah really is. My husband looked at me, he goes, I can't believe she said that. But I'm telling him, yeah, you should have seen his face. Yeah, that's what it is. And when God and his wife, Israel, have sex, the result of that is a birth. Worlds are born out of that union, communion, and those worlds are inhabited by living beings.
Just in case you think this is some random woman that doesn't represent what the Kabbalah really teaches, listen to this professor at Cornell teach a course about Kabbalah. I'll just cut to the clip.
I thought, great, this is a text about God's body. And then I thought, why is there a rainbow forming a house around it? And then I realized that the word for body here is often a euphemism for penis. And that house functioned the same way for wife and vagina. And so then when I saw that the rainbow had folds and that it was sitting over the body, something definitely began to click. Namely, there's a tradition of not only divine embodiment, but since this one clearly has genitals, also divine gendering and bigendering to boot. Even more, that there's a tradition of intradivine sexuality. And as the text tells us later, humans and angels watch. So, and even more still, those who know this and recite the text daily get special powers. And we'll examine a section that demonstrates the power of human observation of divine coitus. And so this is what happens in this text. The text describes how the operator has studied, memorized, prayed, recited a litany of divine names, and a series of astronomically large measurements of the divine body, all memorized. He arrives at the highest heaven finally to witness, with overwhelming emotions of awe and wonder, a celestial prayer service that ends in intra-divine coitus. And it's marked with a declaration, the throne of glory is glistening. So it's quite an image. Could it be that this happens every time that anybody says their prayers, since they're almost exactly the same above as below?
Now let's move along. YHWH or YHWH does not actually stand for the word I am. Many Christians think that YHWH is a translation of I am, but it is not. The translation of I am into Hebrew is Haya. They convolute YHWH or YHWH by changing the tense from the first person, Haya, to He will be, or Yahweh. God has always existed and is unchanging. He will be is not appropriate, unless you are speaking of Satan, who thinks he will be God. Is this the first time you're hearing this? You must be thinking, well, she's not a Hebrew scholar. But let me show you where the Jews admit this themselves. If you go to my website, you're going to be able to find the original pages that these quotes have come from. This first quote is from thetorah.com in the article, The God That Is versus the God That Becomes.
YHWH. Ehyeh. Whatever the historical meaning of the name, the Torah's first communication of it to Moses includes an etymological nod towards its meaning in the seemingly tautological and seductive play on the root to be of YHWH in Exodus. Chapter 3, verse 14. I will be who I will be, or I am who I am. And God said to Moses, YHWH. He continued, thus shall you say to the Israelites, Ehyeh sent me to you. This enigmatic phrase, evasively formulated in the first-person imperfect form of the root to be, rather than the third person of the name itself, has provoked an endless stream of translations, interpretations, and scholarship, from the Septuagint, the ancient Greek translation, to the 20th century philosopher Martin Buber, and beyond. This contentiousness itself attests to what I believe is its deliberate ambiguity and irresolvable open-endedness.
Okay, now listen to this excerpt from another article of theirs.
Nevertheless, this interpretation does not reflect the original meaning of YHWH. The word he is would not be written with a vav as its third letter, but with a yod as yahai, just as the word I am is ahai. Second, note how awkwardly the verse is read, trying to force the meaning ehye on the word YHWH, by having God first tell Moses to use the name ehye and then to use the name YHWH without explaining the switch.
So did you catch that? In order to get the word Yahweh or YHWH, you have to change the tense of the word from I am to I will be. So I was curious, exactly how many of these coded, encrypted names of God do they have? So apparently they have a one-letter word for God called the monogrammata. Then they have a two-letter word name for God, which is a digrammata. And then, of course, the four-letter tetragrammaton that we're used to. But they also have an 8-letter name for God called an octagrammaton. Then a 10-letter name, which is a decagrammaton. And a 12-letter name where you just put the 4-letter name 3 times. Then a 14-letter name, a 22-letter name, a 33-letter name, a 42-letter name, which is used in this ceremony, and the 72 names of God, which is a 216-letter name. You know, the New Testament says there's a name that is above all other names, and that is the name of Jesus. Now, why am I making a big fuss about all of this? It's because there is an agenda behind all these secret cipher codes for God, and we as Christians should not be using them. If you just do a simple search on the internet for the word tetragrammaton, you are going to quickly find out that witches are obsessed with this, and the reason why is because it's connected to the ancient mystery religions of Babylon, and that's how we got the Kabbalah in the first place.
In the context of the Capitol Dome and the 72 stars that circle Washington's apotheosis in the womb of Isis, the significance of that symbolism is very, very important, because in sacred literature, including the Bible, stars are symbolic of angels. And within Masonic Gnosticism, 72 is the number of the fallen angels, or cosmocrators, reflected in the 72 conspirators that controlled Osiris's life in Egyptian myth. These are the same entities that currently administer the affairs of Earth, according to experts in the study of the divine council, that believe that, beginning at the Tower of Babel, the world and its inhabitants were disinherited by the sovereign God of Israel and placed under the authority of 72 angels, which became corrupt and disloyal to God. But these beings quickly became worshipped on earth as gods following Babel, and they were led by Osiris, Apollo. So, consistent within the traditions, the designers of the Capitol Dome, the Great Seal of the United States, and the obelisk Washington Monument circled the apotheosis of Washington with 72 pentagrams, dedicated the obelisk 72 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence, and placed 72 stones on the Great Seal's uncapped pyramid, above which the Eye of Horus, Osiris, Apollo stares. Those 3 sets of 72, combined with the imagery and occult numerology of the Osiris obelisk, the Isis dome, and the oracular Great Seal, are richly symbolic of the influence of Satan and his angels over the world, with a prophecy toward Satan's final earthly empire, the coming Novus Ordo Seclorum, or the new golden pagan age. Now, in order for the inevitable worship of Osiris to be reestablished on earth, the 72 demons that govern the nations have to be controlled, and therefore they're set in magical constraints on the Great Seal, the Washington obelisk, and the pentagram circles around the apotheosis of Washington in order to bind and force the desired effect according to the esoteric beliefs of the Freemasons and other occultists. In The Secret Destiny of America, Manly P. Hall noted as well that the 72 stones of the pyramid on the Great Seal correspond to the 72 arrangements of the tetragrammaton, or the four-lettered name of God in Hebrew. Those four letters can be combined in 72 combinations that result in what is called the Shimhamphorish, which represents in turn the laws, the powers, the energies of nature, according to the Masonic occultists. So the idea that the mystical name of God could be invoked to bind or loose these supernatural agents, or the powers and energies of nature, as Hall called them, is very meaningful creed inside many occult tenets, including Kabbalah and Freemasonry. And that is why the 72 stars are pentagram shaped around the deified Freemason George Washington. Medieval books of magic, or grimoires, such as the Key of Solomon and the Lesser Key of Solomon, not only identify the star systems Orion, which is Osiris, and Pleiades, which is Apollo, as the home of these powers, but apply great importance to the pentagram shape of the stars for binding and loosing their influence.
So now you see what this leads to. So take the advice of the New Testament that says that in these last days God has chosen to reveal himself through his Son.
But in these last days he has spoken to us by his Son, whom he appointed heir of all things, and through whom also he made the universe. Hebrews chapter 1 verse 2.